Hey guys, Yanis Varoufakis. Yes, that is the man's name. And on the first blush, I wouldn't blame you for quite liking him. This was the motorcycling riding economist that was thrown out in quite dramatic style and rejected by the EU negotiators as they castrated Greece and turned it into a poverty little hovel sub-province of the larger EU state, and inflicted hardship, ongoing debt on a nation state that needed to return to its own currency and to devalue and to fail on its debt, in other words, to default. Yanis had sought better terms for his nation and was vigilant. Others around him were bought off and he was ejected, and Greece itself was humbled and brought to heel under the larger EU state, at the mercy of Frau Merkel, the Bundesbank, and the rest of the governing German body. Yep. So on the first blush, what's not to like about the man? I will always say, though, there's more than meets the eye. So while this social democrat, as I think he positions himself, talks often about that particular event and had my sympathies, and I was probably a supporter in trying to get better terms and the power that Germany wielded in all of this, I would also say, having watched some of his recent comments, he is a massive fan of UBI. UBI. What is UBI, you might be asking? Universal Basic Income. On the surface, what's not to like about that? Hey, some folk are just going to pay you for just existing. How about that? Getting paid for just existing? Awesome. Welcome to the specially, politely and beautifully branded new communism. Yes, you're going to get paid for just existing. What many people forget to ask is, where does the money come from? Where does the money come from for UBI? Yep. And that is where the devil is in the details. First, they sell you in the principle and the idea and the notion of this awesomeness, and then you find out what goes with it to have it. Now, there's a great little story about a teacher that's never failed a student and then failed an entire class. The story goes something like this. The class thought that socialism / communism was a great notion. So he said, the teacher, I tell you what, instead of you all getting your separate determined grades according to your talents and your efforts, what we'll do is we'll have one grade for all. One grade for all. So what of course happened at the next test is the smart kids studied as usual, the hard-working smart kids studied as usual. The lazier kids, for whom it was less of a priority, did what they normally did. And overall, the average was a B. Not bad. For 65%, it was way more than what they typically got. And for those that usually got A pluses, well, they were real disappointed. That 15-20% that got A's and A pluses were real disappointed to be dropped down to a B. The rest, they were pretty darn happy. Hey, they didn't do particularly much work, they didn't do much effort, and they've got a better grade than they typically get. Isn't that awesome? Then came the second test. Now, the thing about this is people learn behavior. So the smart kids thought, what the hell's the purpose here? I'm going to be dragged down by a damp weight of people that don't truly give us stuff and are waiting for me to pull them up. I am working to better myself. I'm going to be diluted in to help others. So they worked a little bit less hard, and instead of getting their usual A+ standards, got B's, B pluses. The others had learned it didn't matter what they did, they were getting a mark higher than that which they deserved. So they did absolutely no work. Some of them barely wrote their name on the tests because they knew others would carry them up. Why bother at all? You're going to get dragged up by the bright kids. Hey, Problem was, the average came out this time and it was a D. Wow, a D income. And there was a third test to come. I think you can see where this is going. Things were quickly on the slide. The minute you have state intervention, a state that is involved in sustaining itself and a reason for existence for itself, you have a cost and you have inefficiencies. The more state intervention you invite and the more redistribution you invite, the less incentive for those that truly are ingenuitive, hardworking and diligent have for lifting themselves up. Hey, if you're in France and you're paying 75-90% income tax on your marginal income tax, why work much harder for 10% so that you can give the government 90? What's the point? Cue talented actors with great brands like Gerald Depardieu moving to Russia, yes, an ex-communist state, for lower tax rates. You're freaking kidding. It's not out of a fairy tale, it's a fact. So, this is the UBI conundrum. Everyone gets sold on something for nothing. Nobody asks from whence does it come. It comes from you and a greater state and a greater redistribution. And if you think that's going to serve you well and you aren't going to see the slow slide, even for those that are on the lower average income level, from a B symbol to a C to a D, as the hard pullers stop pulling so hard and go Ayn Rand and John Galt on you, and the laggards just pile up and come from other nations through into your borders, all for the free lunch. Guess what? That story doesn't end well. Yanis, sorry, I'm not a fan. By the way, Yanis is now an official economic advisor to Jeremy Corbyn. Yep, Corbynistas. The new redistribution economics man is whispering in the ear of one of the most socialistic Labour leaders. Now, I'm no Blairite fan either, and in fact Corbyn is probably more sincere about his intentions than most politicians. Doesn't help though that some of his intentions economically totally suck. So that's the lie of the land. That's my take on UBI, and that's my take on the Labour Party, which is now getting plaudits and has Corbyn potentially posturing as a Prime Minister in waiting, the most reviled. Many will say, well, he's not a Rothschild stroke control structure man. Well, I can tell you, they'll get one part of their agenda in, they always have a part that gets in, and the left red part, which will be universal basic incomes, is the part of their agenda that they'll get in under him. Just like Obamacare under Obama. And when it swings back the other way, they'll be getting privatization further advanced on your hospitals and everything else that you do. So don't be fooled. Don't be fooled.